Today's video, we're going to be talking about car insurance. So it's a big part of owning these cars that kind of gets overlooked because, we're always so focused on just either driving them or fixing them. But I'm sure you are all well aware of my experiences with, dealing with insurance and dealing with accidents and all kinds of stuff. So I figured today would be a great day to kind of sit down, break everything down, and I'm going to share what insurance company I'm using with you guys, and I'm going to go over a breakdown of my policy and everything that I'm paying for and how much it costs me. The one thing that you should really just take in consideration is that insurance is not just a one-size-fits-all thing. So it's more so it's going to your premium and all that kind of stuff, and your deductibles and everything, that all changes based on what you can afford, and so that of course is going to change your monthly payments, but also just the state that you live in can affect the price and all that other kind of stuff. So I figured this would be a relatively good idea to give you a sort of baseline to then compare to. So previously with the 83 car and with this car, I was using Farmers Insurance. I was basically under my parents' policy, and I think it was around $70 a month, and that was for full coverage. So that was glass and towing, roadside, full, not just liability, but full accident coverage on the car, and then somewhere I think around the $300,000-$500,000 value for like the bodily injury, and like I think it was $100,000 or $250,000 for the property damage and all that other kind of stuff. So anyways, that's what I was using because Haggerty would not insure my car. They wouldn't give me a quote even because of how much I drive the car. So I drive the car too much. And that sort of leads me into talking about classic car insurance policies. So I just had regular coverage up until about 6 months ago. So when you have regular car insurance, it limits you in how you can register the car, and it doesn't involve, like, if you get in an accident, the process is very much like it doesn't change because the car is older. So you still have to go through fighting for the value. So that means, for example, on a 1980s car, their agents are really gonna look at the NADA value or the Blue Book value. And so try to go on Kelley Blue Book right now and search values for, anything older than 1995. Not gonna happen, right? So you can always try to rely on NADA value. What you really have to do is go through and fight and actually put together, in my case it was Bring a Trailer listings, and just see, the key here is to find what cars actually sold for. So not what they're listed for, but what previous cars in similar mileage and conditions sold for. And that will give you a better idea of probably where the insurance company will lowball you around an offer like that. When my first car got hit, it was definitely a fight, because again, and that's not like just specifically focusing on Porsche market, right? Because we all know that Porsche prices go insane. Remember when G bodies were 15-20 grand about 5-10 years ago? So yeah, look what happened with those. But anyways, so for the longest time I couldn't find a company that was going to offer me an agreed value without restricting my mileage. Farmers also offered agreed value, but again, it was with the mileage restrictions. So because I drive the car too much, I just kept it on regular policy. And that was until I switched to Porsche auto insurance. And this is the primary reason for me making this video, is a lot of people, I don't think, even know that this exists, but Porsche has their own auto insurance. Now it is run like within house, but I do believe it is managed by an external insurance company. I'm gonna scroll through my paperwork here and see where I might be able to find it. It might be in like the fine print of the policy. But there is an external insurance policy that like does the actual insurance part. But for the most part, or at least from my understanding, everything is done so from just an all Porsche in-house environment. So that means that Porsche exclusive, repair centers, right? So obviously if you get in an accident or something happens to your car and it's not your fault, legally you have the choice of where your car goes, right? With this, it's mandatory that it's taken. So like if an insurance company comes and picks the car up, it has to go to a Porsche certified repair place. All replacement parts, mandatory factory OEM replacements. Let's see, and then obviously they offer comprehensive coverage, so glass and all that other kind of stuff that's involved with comprehensive. Diminution of value coverage, so if you get in a car accident, it's not your fault, but the car gets repaired, obviously the car is going to be worth less afterwards. So that's a pretty typical standard insurance policy stuff. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, immediate servicing repairs at Porsche certified repair facility, towing coverage, OEM parts coverage, and yeah, so it's a pretty big deal. You can go online and find out all the information that you need. You can get a quote tailored based on your state and all that other kind of stuff. It'll ask you basic questions like how long have you had the car, is it garaged at the living address where you're at, mileage and how you drive the car and how much you expect to drive the car per year. But what really sets this apart is that there's no mileage restriction. So the policy that I'm with, and by the way, this goes to models 1981 and newer. So it doesn't matter what Porsche it is, as long as it's within that year threshold, as long as it's 1981 and newer, you should be able to do this pay per mile coverage. And then it's up to you, right? So some months you can drive, you could put 1,000 miles on your car in a month, and then over the winter or whatever, when you park it, you could put no miles on the car. So, but the point is that there's no annual restriction. So it's not like you're limited to 2,500 miles. You can drive, 10, 20,000 miles a year or whatever. Your payments will reflect that, obviously, but that's what you're paying for, and that was the real benefit to all of this. Everything else to me was just like extra bonus incentives, everything that you would kind of hope from a Porsche coverage. But the real kind of cherry on top is that there's no mileage restriction. So why that's important is, for example, in a state like Arizona, now that I have the classic car policy, the agreed value policy, I can register the car as a classic, because while I do drive it a lot, and while my annual mileage might be up there, which is still, when I say up there, it's still less than 10,000 miles. It's probably right around 6 on average if I kind of map out the years. But now I can register the car as a classic, and so that's a big deal, because if it is in another accident, or hopefully that never happens, but now it's not a fight. Well, the car is not registered as a classic. Well, you don't have a classic car insurance policy, all kinds of stuff. Everything is there now to fulfill that sort of requirement for the superficial level people, when you get on the phone and you have to file a claim with another insurance company. So this is the main thing about all this. All of this stuff that you do to protect yourself is exactly that. It's to protect yourself, not because you're going to use your own insurance when you get hit if it's not your fault, but this is all ammunition to use against the insurance company of the driver that hits you, because that's who you're really dealing with in an accident. So if you're not familiar with that, especially for the younger audience out there, That's how car insurance works. When you get hit, you don't use your policy. You're subject to the limitations of the insurance that the other driver uses, which is just baffling. Now, I've learned that there's ways around that. For example, you can file a claim through your own insurance, but everything is just always a sort of give and take. So the fact that you can have a Porsche in-house insurance policy where you're not worried about what kind of parts they're using, you're not worried about what kind of repair facility it's going to, you can still get all the amenities of glass and towing and all the other kind of stuff. And on top of that, have an agreed value. That's the biggest deal with this, and that will kind of round everything out here. Agreed value is essentially where you and the insurance company come to an agreement on what the value of the car is. And so what that means is, in the event of a total loss, okay, and it's paramount that I believe that it is derivative in the sense that this is only if you're not at fault for the accident, right? But that's kind of split into hairs here. If you are not at fault for an accident and the car is deemed a total loss, you have the agreed value for what you agreed to pay, or what the insurance has agreed to pay you in the event of that total loss. So normally the way that it works when you get hit is, like I said, insurance companies will rely on that NADA value or the Blue Book or whatever, recent sales, whatever the market's looking like, and they'll say, well, based on the actual cash value that we think it's worth, here's what we're going to give you. This is, no, I already have a predetermined value. This is the check that you're going to cut me. There's no fighting, no argument. This is my policy. This is what you're obligated to pay. So in this case, I have this car insured for about $20,000. And if you sort of take the initial purchase price that I paid for the car and everything that I have into it, that's about there. Give or take, it's right around that $20,000 mark. Now, the nice thing is that I can always I can always adjust that agreed value. I can always call Porsche Insurance at any time and say, hey, the value of these cars has changed, it needs to go up a little bit. Obviously, that will reflect in my premiums and all that other kind of stuff, but the flexibility is there. But that's the point is I have agreed value on this car, and so if it ever gets, again, hopefully it never happens, but if this car ever is in another horrible accident and it gets totaled, now I don't have to fight. Now it's just, this is the number that I'm owed, and that has to get paid out. So that is agreed value. And what was the other thing I was going to mention about agreed value that was really important? As far as agreed value goes, in determining the value, the way that I personally look at it is, what would it take for me to buy another car in similar condition with similar miles, and then go through and add all the things that I've done, right? So doing suspension, doing whatever else. And the Porsche insurance policy encourages you to do that. It says, hey, there's obviously the baseline value of the car, but then, if you do modifications to it, that's your responsibility to go through and make sure that you account for that when you're doing your agreed value. So for me, and again, when you're talking about insurance, it's more so about insuring your financial asset, right? It's less about like, well, $20,000, no one's going to pay $20,000 for that car. The car's not for sale. That's not the point. The point is what would it take for me to acquire this car that's in my garage right now and cover my loss if it was totaled, with the parts and the purchase price of the car, and then the value of the car. So that's the way that you should look at it. So don't go insuring your condition 3 944 for $150,000 and think that that's going to benefit you. It's really not, and if anything, it's going to make your premium ridiculously stupid high. So okay, that's a solid overview. So now let's talk more specifically about the Porsche insurance, the nitty gritty. So we've covered my agreed value. So let's go through and cover my what my actual coverage is. So for the bodily injury, that's $100,000 and up to $300,000. So I did the 100, 300, and that's per person per accident. Property damage, I have coverage up to $100,000. My comprehensive deductible is $1,000, so I have to pay up to that deductible right before the insurance policy kicks in. Same thing with collision, it's $1,000. That's what will have to come out of my pocket if anything happens. I opted to do up to $25,000 in medical coverage, so this is like obviously like hospital fees and stuff like that. The reason why I chose to do that was because the whole medical side of things after that gnarly accident was horrible. Trying to fight with the other insurance, State Farm, and prove that I was not in the best shape and that I needed treatment and all that other kind of stuff was just, it was so stressful. And this is typically why lawyers have to end up getting involved, right? Because there's devices that these people use, that these companies use to intimidate you so that they can pay out as little as possible, right? Because the idea is to wear you down to the point where you just are like, I don't even want to deal with this right now, because you're still, in that time, you're trying to deal with like physical pain, probably emotional pain, trying to find a new car, the loss of your car. And this is all just regular car accident stuff, not Porsche enthusiast stuff, right? So the $25,000 medical coverage was for me so that if I ever have to do this, I can just file a claim with them and I know that I have that amount of coverage. I don't have to worry about tests or exams in a hospital and be worried that it's not going to help, or I'll be, it's insurance. I don't have to worry about it. And then for the uninsured motorist, now this is really key. What happens when you get hit by someone who doesn't have insurance, right? They're driving on the road illegally. This is why it's imperative that you make sure that you have an uninsured motorist part of your coverage. So for me, that's, again, it's the same thing. For the bodily injury, it's 100, 300. And for the underinsured is the same thing, 100, 300. So what that means is if the other person's insurance, if their policy isn't enough to cover your medical bills or and all that other kind of stuff, your insurance policy is there to kick in to pick up that slack. That way you don't have to come out of pocket. Otherwise, if you don't have that coverage, you are responsible for, paying the difference essentially of whatever that other person's policy doesn't cover. So this is an outdated copy here because I do have roadside, and I might need to go through and add glass. I thought I had glass added. But the roadside I think was an additional $8 a month. But basically, I did a 6-month plan. My per mile charge is about 5 cents. So every 5 cents that I drive the car, I'm gonna get charged per mile. And the base premium over 6 months is $260. So the way that it breaks down is per month. If you take that $266, divide that by 6 months, that gives you my base monthly premium, and then I have the 5 cents per mile that I drive. So if I drive, let's say 500 miles, then that would be another $25 added on top of that. So the way that I've seen it break down with actual payments so far has been right around $60 to $90 a month. It just depends on how much I drive. The $90 a month bill was after I put just around 1,000 miles on the car in a single month. Did a lot of driving. But typically it bounces around that $60 to $70 a month mark. Now, the coverage that I have here is less than the 300, 500 that I was under Farmers. But I think the balance of trade-offs for me alone, covering my own car, makes more sense. So that is a breakdown of my insurance policy. Let's see, is this? But adding the roadside jumped it up from 266 to 274 over 6 months. You have the option to do, you know, the 6 month or the 1 year and just pay for the whole year. Every 6 months you'll have to renew, and again, you're subject to price changes and fluctuations. But yeah, overall, look, whether you choose to use the Porsche insurance or not, by the way, none of this is sponsored. I'm just telling you that this exists, because every time I go and I talk to people about it, they have no idea that this is an option for them. So you'll have to check and make sure that it's available in your state, all that other kind of good stuff. But regardless of what company you choose and how you choose to go about it, I would recommend for these cars to do at minimum agreed value. Make sure that you have more than enough of the property damage and the bodily injury. Make sure that you do some form of medical coverage. One thing I didn't cover here is the rental. I opted not to do rental just because to me, I'd actually, do I have the rental on here? Oh, I do have the rental reimbursement. I have $40 per day up to $1,200. So I do have rental coverage. Yeah, what else? That one's kind of give or take, but just the main thing is just to do the agreed value. So shop around, as always, call. You can use the Porsche website to get quotes and all that other kind of stuff. So far, my communication with them has been solid. The only thing that I had to wait the longest for was my insurance card, which was kind of cool. I'll show you that real quick. See if I can cover up all the goods here. Yeah, there we go. So there's the insurance card. Hopefully I'm getting that in frame. It's pretty sure it's aluminum and anodized, so that's pretty cool. So I have that with me, with my policy and all that other kind of good stuff, and all the other information. You typically want to have all that when you're waiting for a tow somewhere. But yes, huge part of Porsche ownership is making sure that you not only are working to maintain the car and all that other kind of stuff, but you're protecting your financial asset in the long run, and you're covered in the event that the unthinkable happens. So take it from me as someone who's experienced that firsthand and has had to learn all these lessons. Hopefully I can impart this on you without you having to go through a horrible experience to find it out the hard way. But hopefully that helps you out. Go check out the Porsche insurance policies, mess around with the configurator. Again, not sponsored. I didn't get a deal on my coverage. This is just my actual coverage in the state that I live in. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully it helps you out, and I'll see you in the next one. Hey, real quick. So like I said, after the video ended there, I was gonna call and add the glass coverage. Turns out it's already automatically included in my coverage. So all the pricing that you heard me list out does include the glass coverage. So if you do call and decide to add a policy with them, just make sure that you ask, just to cover your own bases. But yeah, important bit of information that should be shared. So